Hello and welcome to Off Track. I'm your host, Dave Neal, and this week my guest is C&L Fairburn Properties Jackson Racing Honda rider and all-round great fella Billy McConnell. We managed to get a quick chat in with Bilby before our end-of-season break. More on that after the show. But what I also want to do is apologise for the audio quality on this one. We've had our first audio whoopsie for as long as I can remember. I don't know why Billy's audio is far quieter than mine, but you can make out what he says quite clearly. It's just I'm a little bit louder than Billy is. And thankfully, Billy talks far more than I do, which is the whole idea of a podcast. Remember to like, share, save, subscribe, tell your friends, drop a review that's good, bad, or indifferent, and we'll do what we can to improve wherever we need to. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it's the Bilby. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to Off Track. I'm your host, Dave Neal, and we're at Brands Hatch. It's the final round of the season. It's Thursday night in the salubrious surroundings of Billy McConnell's motorhome. And, well, who better to join us? Billy McConnell. Bilby, welcome back, mate.
With a nice cold Corona in hand.
Absolutely we have. This is the other thing as well, isn't it? This is what we can do on a Thursday night.
Point, mate.
It is. Well, I'd expect no less from you, mate. You've always been on point with the hospitality, and thank you for the beer. Very cold, very crisp. We hadn't done this for a while. We did this in lockdown last when Shannon had his really strange haircut.
Yeah, that was a strange haircut. That come up on a time hop the other day, but that scared me.
I'm not surprised. Yeah. And we're going to have Shaz on the podcast on his own at some point because he's got some story to tell as well, hasn't he? He's been around a bit.
This year, yeah, he's been doing the Speedway Grand Prix. Australians won the Speedway this year, and he's been helping Jason Doyle and with James Hillier at OMG at the start of the year. TT Northwest, that was his first experience there as well at the Northwest and the TT, and he was quite nerve-wracking about having some responsibility with them sort of pressures.
And you as well.
Yeah, and then Shannon's always there to help me out. So he's been basically my right-hand man since when he was racing over here. You know, we've been best friends for a long time, and then he come back over with his brother later on after his career, and then sort of got involved with he works at Triumph doing the traction control development side as a rider, and then he's took an approach to understanding and learning the whole system and how it works, and then has taken the role as crew chief, not just for myself. I worked a lot with Brock Parks and a few other people, and then when my team come about this year, we he's obviously he's like my comfort blanket almost. He's just always there. Whether if I've got a hot head after a session, I just tell me the right things to and what direction to go in, as in probably more so for myself than actual bike setup sometimes.
Which was fascinating to watch you work together last year when you rode for the Rich OMG racing team in the Superstock Championship. Give us a run back we'll run through the season as we go through the conversation, but run me back to the end of last season and what the winter was like as we're sort of sat here at the end of this season there.
The winter from
what happened through from OMG to the new team.
It was mad really. You know, was hoping to go ride with OMG last year, and then things didn't quite happen, and then we sort of found ourselves sort of late January, February, not knowing what we we're going to do, and then so we had to formulate a team. And a good friend of mine, Chris Fairburn, is been a sponsor of mine for a long time. So we sort of spoke to a few other teams and that tried to get rides, but it was sort of really sort of late to do anything. And then Chris came up with the idea that we just run our own team, you know, because it's obviously quite a lot of money to put money into a team sort of late on in that year to get to go into a team, and it was really difficult. And I sort of had the mind to maybe just sit on the fence lines and wait for something to pop up, whether someone injury or whatnot, or didn't really know what to do. And then Chris sort of got the ball rolling, and we spoke to a few of my other little personal sponsors and that, and it just sort of snowballed from there. It was just going to be a bike and a van, and we end up, Chris went all in, and we've got a massive trailer, and we went with Honda because they got the contingency plan as well, and Chris is friends with Javier Beltre, and the Honda do that contingency where if you win the championship you get a bike and some prize money back and set up sheets and all that, and it snowballed from there. So and then Helen Lord, a good friend of mine that I used to live with her and Ian back in the day, she messaged me about because I said unless we can get right crew and all that, I said it's as everyone knows in the racing industry, it's a hard job, you know, to get people to work and to understand the job at hand. And I've never really met the Jackson brothers before, and Helen put us in touch with them, and they built the bike for us. They're massive into Hondas and building bikes. And then when I first got back over in March, we went to an Alton Park test, and as soon as I met the guys and went out on the bike straight away, I just thought this thing's capable of winning. And the passion them boys, Alan and Andy, have got for bike racing is general. They come from more of a road racing. The dad was world champion. They've raced a TT, done a number of things, but their bread and butter is road racing more so than the track stuff. But after that first test, I just knew that everything was placing in the right direction. My good friends Pete and Joe from CBN Leisure, they're and all my sponsors that have come on board. But we had a brilliant year, and it was all formulated together, and it was our own team, So it was every time I walked in the garage, and I felt very humbled and blessed that all my friends and family that I've met over the 18 years have all come together to actually put me on the start grid again. And I felt a really good rider just by being feeling that I had that much friends and support from the job. So and yeah, it's just snowballed, and then obviously round one we got taken out straight away, and I've not filled an entry form out for about 18 years, so doing all that side of things and all that, you take your hat off to all the people that normally look after you and wipe your bum for you with all that side of things, and filling entry forms out and doing all that stuff, and knowing where the truck goes and all that. It was a whole new experience for all of us and all of us involved. So
it's nearly growing up, Bill.
I know, yeah. That's,
nearly.
Yeah, nearly, yeah. And but yeah, try to be like Peter Pan. Really, don't really want to grow up yet, and having too much fun racing bikes. So yeah. And anyway, we've had a brilliant season. We've had some. From round one, when we got taken out in turn one after qualifying pole at our first ever race as a new team, and then we thought, because once you lose a few results, the points make prizes, and then it snowballed from there. We got a podium in the next race because we did managed to do a time in that first race, and then snowballed from there, and we were quite a lot of points down, and then got taken out again, and we thought it was pretty much down and out really, so we're just going for race wins, went to Knock Hill, and then we end up being from I think like 67 points or 70 points down to coming out within 15-20 points from the win. Unfortunately for Tim Neve, he had a big accident there at the test, so he was the main charger at the start of the year, and then we just kept trying to get results, and we won 3 races and lots of podiums, and then next thing you know we were leading the championship. So we tried to hold that, and then unfortunately we got knocked off again, and so I think we've had 3 DNFs from takeouts, and then one of those caused us to start from the back of the grid at Donington as well, and we got up to 6 from the back of the grid. But yeah, it's hard now because we're talking, because I already know the championship's lost. Davey Todd rode fantastic, got a lot of points, and the last race he rode fantastic. I tried everything I could, and I sort of had nothing to lose, and he did, and he still he smoked me in that last race. In the first race I run off with a false neutral, come back, and I thought the next race, and he got a brilliant start in the second race, and then took off and broke the lap record lap after lap, and I broke it, and then he broke it, and it was mad, and then I couldn't bring that gap in, and he won the championship. So fair play to Davey. He's had a fantastic year as well with roads and riding on the short circuit, and it's a massive ball of confidence with him rolling forward as well. So, and then after Snet, when we got took out, we sort of knew that it was hard. We had to win quite a lot of races to get those points back because Davey was riding so strong. So, but looking back now, I'm more than happy to how I've ridden this year, and if I had those DNFs on my own account, I'd be really upset and annoyed with myself. I had to have a few moments there, just reflecting on things, and then obviously, when you get down and out about racing, and the news about Chrissy come about last week, and it was what a beautiful character we've lost there, and then at the end of the day you think it's only a championship at the end of the day, and racing motorbike saying that we love and that, but it ain't everything. So you got to really hold your friends and close ones around you and think that we're all blessed to be here and carry on with this dream. No question at all.
I suppose that leads on to the question of for you personally, what keeps that fire burning?
Fire burning, it is a massive travelling circus that we've got there when we go from track to track and bumping into beautiful people like yourself and the friends and family that you meet through racing, that you think, what would you be doing if you didn't have it's my 18th season now here in the BSB, so I come here 19 on my own and met all these people that have helped me on my journey all the way up to this point. If I was just to walk away from it now, like I got to a point where when I first come over from Australia, those 8 months were like painful, couldn't wait to go back, homesick, just couldn't wait to go back. And now when I do go back, 2 or 3 months, and I love seeing my friends and family, being back in Australia and in the warmth, but I miss racing. I miss the people that I've been around here for most of my life now. So it's I'm sneaking up there in the age bracket, but it's something that I can't even think about walking away from at the moment. And this year's been like sort of reborn with the racing side of things, and then obviously trying to Chris is a massive backer of the team and got the whole job rolling, so we're just trying to find some sponsors and that, and hopefully we'll more than likely be on the grid again next year in Superstock and keep the same thing going. We're just looking for some sponsors to come on board to to try to help grow the whole team, and hopefully eventually maybe either go back into Superbike with the team or at least help the team grow to that sort of status anyway.
I mean, 18 years I remember you coming over and doing the R6 Cup, and
I've got this picture on my phone. And
Brendan Roberts was Brendan came across, didn't he? See, look at that.
Just showed Dave a picture when I was on the R6 Cup.
Just a baby. You haven't changed, Bill.
Yeah. Well, I looked at that and I looked in the mirror and I was like, Jesus Christ, I haven't been here a while. I still feel like that.
But that's the thing. It's still that in your head, isn't it? That's half of the battle, I find.
Yeah.
That you're only as old as you feel.
Yeah.
And age is but a number. I'm creeping up on a big one in January, but I still feel like I'm 12 in my head.
What's the big one?
50. So 50 in January for me. But you've been in it sort of almost half your life.
Yeah, pretty much.
And most of your adult life, at least from 18 to now, is an incredible amount of time. And I remember we had the podcast a few weeks ago. Kev Stevenson was on the podcast.
Oh,
yeah.
When I first got here in the R6 Cup, I won the championship that year when I was with Tamworth Yamaha, and then the following year I won the Superbike ride, which is still, I think, one of the biggest prizes in motorsport. Go straight from winning that, and it was a brilliant class because I think it only cost $15,000 for the entry, and then if you won it, you won a factory Superbike ride. And then I had nowhere to live at that point. I'm over on my own, and then I spoke to Rob and I said, "You got anywhere up there?" And he says, "Yeah, I can come live." And so I ended up living with my crew chief Spider in the middle of Scunthorpe Town Centre, and like right out the back bedroom window was Light the nightclub.
Henry Africa's.
And coming back to Kev Stevenson, we always used to do pranks on each other and stuff like that because I used to work in the workshop there and that, and then I think I got him a good prank, and then he thought it was a good idea in the garage too. The straw that goes in top of your drink bottles that you drink out of, he decided to top that top bit up with brake cleaner. So my first sip was brake cleaner. I spat it out. I went mad at him, and he thought it was hilarious. But
weirdly, on the podcast, he told us quite a few things that he'd done with pranks and things like that. And it's in the days when you could. I mean, probably still can today, but it's kind of the youngsters today don't quite appreciate it. They don't have that sense of humour, do they?
Well, yeah, I do like a good prank, and I do own it when I get one done back to me, because if you give them, you've got to be prepared to take them. That's what I say.
Which is why I don't bother, because I don't want there's somebody creeping up on me in the middle of the night sticking a bat on my nightdress or something like that. I don't want any of that. The switch to Honda was an interesting one because he'd done the year on the BMW. He'd had some great results on that, and again, narrowly missing out on the championship to Tom Neve on the Honda. So to then step to that, what was that like for you to change the manufacturers?
Well, to be fair, every time I've hopped on a bike, I don't think there is a bad manufacturer out there, to be fair. They all got their pros about them, and some got their negative side to them. I did love the Suzuki when I was also at Build Base there with the Hawk guys. They built a fantastic bike, and Steve and Stuart Hicken have been around it for long enough. They know what a good bike needs. It don't need all the bells and whistles on there to make it go good, which Coops proved when he stepped back in as well. Super stock spec is very limited what you can do to the bike, where you can't get lost. Where I think in super stock, if you buy a bike out the showroom, you put your suspension in and out, you can get telemetry if you need it. If you haven't got anyone that can read it, there's no point having it. Where superbike, you go superbike, you can put so many things on it, from different offsets, your cups, head angles, linkages, swing arms, front suspension, you got your rear suspension, you can your electronics with the Motec, and if you haven't got the right crew and the right people around it, you can tie yourself in a massive knot around there, and you'll be going slower than what you could do on a stock bike. And I've seen it time and time again where people think, oh, I'm only a second or 2 seconds off in super stock, I'll get a super bike and I'll be at the front. You get on a super bike, they're 230, 40, 50 horsepower, absolute animals, You ride a super stock bike and you've got electronics, you can dim it down. They're a beautiful bike to ride. They're like riding a super sport bike when they're so smooth and the electronics help, and they're such a nice bike. Them guys do so much development with the kit ECU and electronics. They're a nice bike. You get on a super bike and you sort of wish you never rode one, and that's why when the guys master them, it's more the team mastering it with the rider. It's such a team thing there with the super bike. You can see, Brad and Kyle on the BMWs last year, and then one step to the Yamaha where the package is the same as McCams and both of the boys are at the front as well, because unless you get the people that know what they're doing with everything, and I think they got a little bit of help with the McCam side of things, just the fundamental stuff, you can get so lost in superbike, and it's easy to point the finger at the mechanic, or it's the rider, it's this and it's that, where you sort of eliminate that all in super stock. You can change a few things, but the amount that you can change is limited with the kit stuff. So I find that's why the super stock package is a good thing, because it's not all about budget and what bits you got on there, because instantly when you're in superbike, if you've got a standard brace swing arm and you see someone roll down with a Suda one, you think, oh, that's why they're quicker, or they got this new brace.
When the mind games start down, and it starts, you start questioning yourself.
You roll down the grid on a superstock bike, like our rear suspension is the Ohlins that come in the bike, the electronic suspension, but converted to so we can use the clickers, and you can only change the bloody chain length and all that, bloody gone blank, the wheelbase and that back and forward, and then you can only put the forks through or down through the yokes, and that's it. You can't change lengths, you can't change that, you can change ride height, and that's it. So it's very limited, and the bikes that come out are fantastic anyway, so you don't really have to do a lot. But then I've got Shannon who's understood the electronic side of things. And then sometimes we went to Alton, and we were so fast here at Brands, went to Alton and put the same settings in there, and I couldn't stop the bike because it was trying to push me in the corner. So you can, and even that's in stock, but it's very limited. Put the numbers back to what we had, and then we're away.
It's still a purer form of racing, isn't it, than the superbike, because there's so little you can do to them. And the rider can make a big difference.
Yeah, and you know what? Even the superstock bike, the superstock bike still ain't cheap, but the superbike is ridiculously expensive. I think the forks are like 25 grand. So then you got swing arms, you got links, and you got stuff that you can't buy with other things.
But when you're running your own team, you don't want to be riding around thinking about that either.
No,
because you can't run to your own potential.
No. So it's and then I think that's like the Australian superbike rules are basically exactly the same as our superstock rules, but they run slicks.
Yeah.
So and it means that everyone can do it, because otherwise you'd be there. The budget for it is massive.
When you took the first win for the team, tell us about that race and the feeling of coming down pit lane and standing on the podium, because you're used to being in an established team, so to now be in a team that fully focuses on you, that you've brought together with Chris and Alan and everybody else. Tell me about that, because that's a different feeling for you now. Yeah,
it was something that we always knew we had the pace to do, and then you don't really think about it until after the race. And then I was so fast that weekend all the time at Alton, smashed the lap record in qualifying, got pole, and then everyone's like, oh, you're going to disappear in the race. And then Alex Olsen, he was just on my back wheel the whole way through the race, and he actually passed me, and I passed him back, and then unfortunately for him, he ran out of petrol. So and I was trying to plan a move, because I felt fast all weekend, and I thought, I've got to win this. And then he made the pass on me, and then I sort of just got through him, but then he had a few splutters, and he must have known he'd run out of fuel, so it sort of helped me get the win and such, being honest there. And then but then come across the finish line, and I was like, yeah, we did it. After all that hard work, after a winter of not knowing where my actual whole future was going, that uncertainty of, it's been 18 years of my life, and not knowing where I was going. It was the first January, February, I didn't know where I was going. Normally I'm always sorted, hopefully I wouldn't leave and then I was in Australia at the time when I didn't know where I was doing, so it made it hard because of the phone calls and all that. And then if it wasn't for Chris, I don't even know what I'd be doing because there wasn't anything about. So, and then to get that win, it was, from all those dark days, crying and worried about where my whole future in life was going after something I've worked for so long was, I think it all snowballed, down under the visor, and it was like, well, yeah, we did it. Like we started something in late January, February. Well, I didn't even think about it really till February, March. There was going to be a team, and then when I come back in, it sunk in with going into the Parc Ferme, and Pete and Joe and Chris and everyone that's put something in there to get me on the grid, and seeing their emotion as well out that we did it, and that's why it was awesome. And then we come so close to being back up the front again. It just would have been a perfect fairy tale if we could have got it, but that's racing, unfortunately. But we're still sitting in second, so hopefully we can wrap second up this weekend. But and that's what racing does to you. I don't think there is a satisfaction that you can get. Sometimes you've got to have those hard days and hard parts to really appreciate what you got and what you do it for. I've been with teams a long time. I was with OMG 3 years, and I wouldn't say get complacent, but you sort of your friends and family as well, and
you kind of get comfortable, not complacent.
Yeah,
comfortable in your surroundings.
I've always been in a professional team, so
yes.
I didn't picture ever of trying to have anything to do with building something up from the scratch and then going racing. And then when it did happen, it formulated beautifully and amazingly that all the people that have sponsored all come in. It's just it was an amazing experience.
Shows how many people love you, Bill. That's the thing. People are prepared to do that for you. When you won the Supersport title 2014.
Yeah, 2014. Yep.
It's like as if that's 8 years ago, but that's another story. It's just ridiculous. I'm
still running that. Yeah,
was that a bigger achievement? Was the team win a bigger achievement than that, or was it something that was? The
thing with is a lot of my career is I've always been like a bridesmaid, like Michael Rudder sort of thing. Coming so close but never quite getting it. So 2014, I finished second and third in the championship for about 6-7 years in a row.
Yeah,
I never got it. So it was
Plater and everybody giving it.
More when I won that. It was more of a relief when I crossed the line that. Every year you don't win a championship, you got your sponsors ringing you, why didn't you win it? Or the team going, you choked at the last minute and you didn't get it because of this, or you crashed out too early, or you didn't win this race. And when I won it, I crossed across the line. I was like, I don't have to answer one phone call tomorrow and say, this is why you didn't do it. I've done it. And it was only going to be praises, hopefully, from that point. It was more of a relief than anything. So, and then Carl Harris taught me back in the day, he says, don't worry, just go out there and try to win every race, because if you win the most races, you win the championship. And it's a simple way of putting it, but then you get in the chair, like, I paranoid and get worried about it.
It's all right, he did that.
Yeah, and I get paranoid and worried about everything. So as soon as I get a championship lead, you go, I'll just take these points, take that. And it was like, now I look back, even at this year, like when I almost had the race at Knock Hill where Kerr got me to the line, so that would have been an extra 5 points if I just did something a little bit different. But at the end of the day, your path's laid out for you, and
it is
fate. So I'm a big believer of that, and what will be, and you can't change it. Just do your best and try it. And the older I get, the more wiser I get to that.
Careful.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever. That's maturity, that, Bilby. I don't want to. Nobody really wants that. The competition's been strong this year as well, hasn't it? With different riders coming through. Davey coming in, as you said. Charlie Nesbitt stepping up, who's been a big surprise to me. Yeah, a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I think Charlie really stepped up his game when Richard Cooper come back and showed what the bike was capable again, because I think people started to think the Suzuki was a bit outdated. And he's looking a lot fitter and leaner as well. So, and the Hawk guys, that they know how to treat a rider. They've been and the thing when you ride for Hawk, it ain't about all the bells and whistles, but one thing they do give you is a load of track time. They're part owners of the Mallory Park, or owners of the Mallory, so you're doing all the club races there. You're on the bike all the time, and you're around the superbike guys as well. So the setup there is good. Their knowledge of racing is awesome, so they know what to put underneath you when to change something or when it's the rider. And for a young rider, that's what you need, because if you get with a mechanic that wants to change everything and you don't even know what you're doing yourself, you feel like you have to say it because everyone else is saying it in the paddock or in the team, you do it. So he stepped up, but he's an amazing talent. He's been on people's watch list since the Moto3, and won the Moto2, and he's a fantastic rider, and he's probably got a big bright future ahead of him.
I've got a bet with myself that he'll be British Superbike champion within 5 years.
Well, I wouldn't take that bet with you because you're probably right.
It makes a change for me to be right on something. I mean, as you get sort of a little bit more... I'm not going to use mature. As you become the elder statesman for the championship, you're getting some of the young riders coming through. That must help keep the fire burning as well, because you got these young jocks coming through. You've got Charlie, Richard Kerr, Alex Olsen joining the fray. He's been around for a few years, but he's a little bit younger, and you're still handing it to them and battling with them on a weekly basis.
Yeah, well, you'd see a lot more talent coming through if there was more budget about. But unfortunately now, like I got to my professional bit through the R6 Cup, where now you got to bring so much money or find sponsors to even get that glimmer, you know. So I think that John Reynolds put in quite, how good would I really be if every kid had a motorbike? You know, when you watch skate parks and BMX places where that don't cost nothing, you see the talent that just drips through that. And even when I go to these like little mini bike events, there's so much talent with young people, but whether they get picked up, which is very unlikely now, like unless you bring money to teams in BSB or anything like that, the chances are you getting something is very slim. So I was lucky I sort of missed that bit where we had to find big budget and stuff like that, and that's why that seems to be the way the sport's going now. So
it's funny you say it. I've often thought of how many Marc Marquez and Valentino Rossi's have we missed purely down to lack of funding. I often think that.
Back in the day, you know, there was prize money, there was contingency money, and now unless you come with money, it doesn't even mean you're going to get paid money yourself. No. So, you know, there's no prize money, there's no contingency where, you know, like back in the day, if you won on a Suzuki, you'd get fired so you could support the team and do this, or, you know, sponsors off the championship to go do it. That's it. You pay your entry and whatever you bring, and that's down to yourself. So, you know, it's hard to see a bright future where you get those pure raw, you know, like Jonathan Ray, you know, he got picked out of motocross with the Red Bull guys, and then went through that whole program, and that's, you know, 6-time, you know, if one for Red Bull, you know, what would that be doing, you know? So like with that amazing talent. So
what was I going to say? It's good you're back and edit this. Life off the bike. What's you working for Triumph?
Was working for Triumph, yeah. And then unfortunately, there wasn't much work going there with when I got back in March. So I started contract at Royal Enfield, just doing test riding. And
I knew you were doing some riding,
but that's all weather permitting as well, because we just do track endurance testing. And then I'll be heading back to Australia. When's this coming out?
Next Friday.
Okay,
so a week's time.
Yeah, it might be all right. So I've hopefully lined up something to do the last 2 Australian Superbike rounds.
Brilliant.
So I won't say anything there until the hopefully press release comes out. So I'm going to try to leave here on the 27th, and then do the last 2 rounds of Australian Superbike, Phillip Island and Tailem Bend, which Jack Miller will be entered as well. So I haven't raced in Australia for a very long time, since I was a kid, since when I left, like in the actual Australian Championship. So I'm excited about that. And then back to working for my dad back there on itchy jet skis. And
I was going to say, back out on the jet skis, back to where it all began.
Yeah, so back out there working with my dad, and probably have 3 or 4 months out there working there, because the bike work here sort of dries up over here with the bad weather. And then hopefully we've back on the grid again with CNL Fairburn.
So what you did with Royal Enfield and Triumph, how cool was that to be part of the development team and being out on the bike? I know you were down at Bruntingthorpe a few times.
Yeah, the Triumph thing was, you know, Triumph's been a massive part of my life. I was at Triumph for 11 years as a test rider, and then also when I won the championship with Triumph in 2014, my name's in stone out the front of the entry to the actual Triumph factory. So you got Steve McQueen, you got all the boys, and then you got my name there. So I'll always be proud of that.
And then the Bilby out the front.
Yeah, exactly.
It's brilliant.
So, always very, very happy with being a part of the Triumph stuff and the press launches and stuff like that. So it was more than and I still see all the guys there all the time, because literally my house is 800 metres from the Triumph factory. So.
What's your best story from a press launch?
We've had quite a few. Once we got probably caught having too many beverages in the pool late at night, and the security come down and everyone was getting kicked out the pool, and I thought I was MacGyver or SAS trained, and held my breath to get away and went underwater and tried to hold my breath and swim away. And then I didn't realise there's pool lights on underwater, so the security guard was just following me. When I popped my head up, he was just there staring at me. He's like, out. And I thought I was full SAS underwater, he wouldn't be able to see me. So there's a few on there, but
that's probably the safest one.
Yeah, but no, they're awesome. So I got to see a lot of part of the world, and we went Morocco, we've been to Spain loads of times with them, and it's you're meeting all the journalists and people that have got passion about motorcycles and test riding some of the bikes that you've had a little bit of input with and stuff like that. So anything to do with motorbikes and people involved with motorbikes, you always find that common ground, no matter if they're different from different countries or whatever. If you go, they see you a Yamaha shirt or a Honda shirt, you ride motorbike, and you got that common ground with them, so you always end up sort of getting on. It's like a little bikers sort of community, and so that's what I love about the sport. You can go here, Australia, or anywhere, and if they know you're in the bikes, you sort of got that lingo with them, sort of thing.
It's all one big family, isn't it?
Yeah,
it always is. And
you're more likely, if you see a biker broke down on the side of the road, you're always more likely to help because everyone's been in that position before and flogging down with rain or saying, mate, I've got a van, where you going? And they look at you like you're a criminal, you're going to hijack them.
Just do that thing where your eyes go together.
Wolf Creek.
It's exactly right. 2 questions to finish off, Bill B. What's your favourite corner and why is one? Of any track you've ever raced, on any machine you've ever raced, what's your favourite corner and why?
Don't really have a favourite corner, to be fair. Paddock Hill is obviously always awesome because of the history that's gone into it. And sort of the last corner as well, depending if you're in the lead and going for the championship, it's always a good feeling to go through that last bit on the last round. It's always normally brands, so don't really have one. I don't really try to always put myself in like favourite track or whatever. If you started like, I used to always hate Silverstone GP track because I always did shit there, and then I started doing really I did well there, almost won the race, and I liked it after that. So I think if you go there with the mentality you don't like something or you don't like that corner, you always think about it and you don't like it. So don't really have a favourite one.
That's fair. And what's your best hire car story?
Well, hire car story. Me and Chris actually out there for the Suzuki test in Spain, and he hired an automatic, and we weren't doing anything wrong. And the clutch started, this is legit, and this is my paranoia as well. The clutch started slipping, and I thought he was messing about. And we're like 10 miles from the airport, and it wasn't even barely making up the hill. And we dropped it back, and we were like, should we say anything? And I was like, because when it was cold, it's fine. When it got hot, it started the clutch slipping on his auto. I thought, we best say something, because if the next person gets it, they might be running late to get somewhere. And then we had fully comp insurance, and then they were trying to say that we were thrashing it and all this and that, and I was like, no, we only said it out of a good faith, and then they end up trying to bill us and that for us.
No.
But there's been loads of rent-a-car stories, but I've never been behind the wheel for one, but yeah.
Okay, what was the best one that you were passenger in?
Oh, no, I'm not even going. I wasn't even a passenger in one, but I heard a good one about a few people in Spain. But
it's always that way. I mean,
But unfortunately, we don't, since Brexit and since COVID and since the testing rules, unfortunately, we don't get to go to Spain. I always found Spain was such a good common ground when you went there with a new team, and it was like sort of like breaking the ice with everyone. Everyone have a few drinks after or do the rent-a-car things, and maybe not sponsored by a rent-a-car or anything.
Mate, it's always a question. Everybody's most people say there's 2 reactions, there's 3 reactions to it. The first one is like, the face lights up and they lean forward and they go, I'll tell you what. The second one is they sit back and they go, no, I can't really. You know in damn well that they're going to incriminate someone, or they just haven't done it. Yeah, but that Cartagena approach road.
Yeah, it's been.
It's the rally stage.
Yeah, the rally.
You've had some fun down there. We all have.
I can't drive a car for shit. So I don't try to drive one, and I don't like when I've got other people life at risk, because I know I can't do it. If they're on the back of the bike and sort of, at least I know I've got some sort of control. But in a car, I've got zero. So I don't even bother with the rent-a-car.
Okay, how close have you come to really scaring a back? Because you've done a few pillion laps in your time.
Yeah, I've done a few pillion ones. There's had this one actually at Triumph, and we were testing. We had to take some of the people out the office around Bruntingthorpe to show them the bike and stuff. They could ride them. If they couldn't ride, they could hop on the back. And me and Pesky, and we were there, and I took these people. I was on the Tiger 800, and as you come out one of the corners, there's like a little puddle in one of the cracks in the road, and you hit it, and I could hit it, and if I had it flat, as I hit the puddle, it could drift out enough with two people on, and then come back, and I could hit it perfectly and slide with two people on, and then come back. And then one of the ladies come back, and she goes, that's amazing. She goes, how do you know we're not going to come off? And I said, well, we don't. And I just thought that funny afterwards, but I didn't really think. Yeah, it was just. I thought they were having too much fun if I didn't really think about the aftermath.
Bilby, thank you so much, mate. It's been a pleasure as always, mate. Thank you very much. Congratulations on another successful season. Didn't quite get that top spot, but let's go again next year and have another crack at it, and enjoy your time back in Australia. Thanks so much, mate.
Excellent. Thanks, mate.
A big thank you to Bilby, and we wish him all the very best for his 2 rounds coming up in Australia. As you heard in the chat, Billy's a great fella, and we wish him nothing but the very best and look forward to welcoming him back next season with Nads alongside him. Right, long speech incoming, so pull up a chair. While we head off on a little break to pay our respects to Chrissy and work on some aspects of the show, Jennifer and I want to say a huge thank you to you all for your support, not only for listening, but the messages on the socials and the kind words in the paddock. It's been a tough couple of weeks for everyone in the motorcycle racing community, and the support for each other really warms the heart. We're off for a couple of weeks now. No show next week or the week after, so we'll be back on the 12th of November with full news about the future of Off-Track, as I've mentioned previously, and just maybe with a new look. And finally, even a co-host. We first discussed it at Motorcycle Live last year, and I think he's going to be a brilliant addition to the show. Also a current racer, which brings the angle in that we've been missing quite a bit. We'll also hopefully have a BSB and World Superbike roundup with our favourite Eurosport commentators to come. Not that they know that yet, so I better start dropping them a message and getting that organised. So it's exciting times here at Off-Track Towers. I just wish I could have shared the plans with our Geordie mate, but I know full well he'd approved, because that's the guy he was. Still not right talking about him in the past tense. The BSB tribute to Chrissy was exceptional last weekend. Thank you to everyone who organised that fitting tribute, and to Duncan Vincent, Alan Hyde, Larry Carter and Matt Roberts for their words and incredible professionalism in not breaking down while offering them. The Eurosport tribute was fitting for the fella, and the on-track tribute from Dom and Crowe really hit home. We were doing just fine with the tribute until someone had the bright idea of ending the 69 seconds of silence with Chrissy's traditional 3, 2, 1 and welcome back to Chasing the Racing. That opened the floodgates on most people, but it was such a beautiful touch. Speaking of which, I thought Steve Day's 3, 2, 1 before the start of race 1 was a subtle tribute, and Matt's closer, join us in April when we go chasing the racing once again, was classy, as was the Eurosport end of season montage. I can't let the podcast end without offering a huge thank you to everyone who supported the auction on Saturday evening. A huge sum of money was raised, and the total continues to mount up with donations, which if you still want to donate via PayPal, Chrissy at omgracing.co.uk is open for the foreseeable future. Thank you to Series Director Stuart Higgs for coming up and opening the auction with exceptional words about Chrissy, and to the Eurosport team for dropping in and picking up a mic to help out. Thank you to Dom Herbertson and his good lady Lauren, to Jack Kennedy, John McGuinness, Davey Todd, Lee Jackson, Rory Skinner, Josh Brooks, and OMG Racing's own Bert and Ernie, Brad and Kyle. But my own personal biggest thank you is to my rock, my Jennifer, as I couldn't do a lot of what I do without her love and encouragement. Congratulations to all this season's champions, but especially to the 2022 Bennett's British Superbike champion Brad Ray. What a huge honour it's been to be team press officer in 2022 for the Rich Energy OMG Racing Yamaha team. That's enough waffling from me. There are plenty of past episodes to catch up on, and all the Chasing the Racing episodes are there on YouTube to remember our mate with. So until the 12th of November, look after each other. Bye-bye.